Okay, guys, I made it to 1700 chess.com in less than 500 games, and I want you to put in the chat, yay, congratulations, like I really care. And so in this video, we're going to look at a counterintuitive approach to reaching this milestone. I'll give you a warning, this video isn't for everyone, but okay, there are different paths up the chess mountain. The format is going to be, I'm going to show you the game that took me to 1700, and rather than go through boring variations, which nobody's interested in, we're going to pause at critical moments in this game to reveal something about my thinking, my mentality, which I basically use in all my games. And so here we go. We have the white pieces, and in this position, play b3, which is already a talking point. So the first thing I would say is to consider ditching the major openings. And so this is obviously going to be quite contentious. Chess, at the end of the day, is a game of memorization. Not entirely, but a lot of it is. It's memorizing opening lines. Even if you don't play Grandmaster lines, you're memorizing some inaccurate line that a lower rated player plays. You're memorizing tactical patterns, memorizing endgames. Even pawn breaks have some kind of configuration, have overlapping themes, which allow them to happen. And so it's your recall versus your opponent. And when I was playing stuff like e4, around the 1300 mark, I started to notice that you're never going to stop people from memorizing tons of stuff around, say, the Sicilian, right? Million videos about the Sicilian on the YouTube. You can buy a chessable course on it. You can say all you want, forget about openings, study tactics puzzles, or do tactics puzzles. At the end of the day, people are going to still look at openings. They're just fascinating. And so I had to make a decision. Are we going to play on your turf or my turf? And I made the decision around 1300. We're going to play b3, putting pressure on you to figure out how to play. And I can say safely that below 2000 chess.com, nobody knows the critical lines. Nobody, guys. Very few people find the critical lines around e5 and f5 and massive kingside expansion. I basically never see him. And so we have here d5 from my opponent, bishop b2, knight to c6, knight f3. And in this position, this goes to what I was saying before, they should really be playing bishop g4, threaten to take the knight, play e5. I think that's the line. They don't. They play this move, knight to f6. Okay, and this is what I was talking about at the top here. People don't know the lines because they don't see b3 on a regular basis. We have here e3, e6, bishop e2, bishop e7, castles, castles, c4. Challenge for the center here. Don't play meek chess. And here, just talk about my second point that I want to go through, which is that I don't play gambits. Okay, gambits equals unstable positions, equals thinking time, equals blunders, equals defeats. It's a formula made up. And you watch your favorite streamer, YouTuber, some title player play some gambit, and they're just smashing everyone up. Remember, they got 10, 20, 30 years of experience behind them. They can find the critical moves, the patterns to finish off their opponent. You and me, on the other hand, probably don't have that ability yet. And so I don't want to spend a 10-minute rapid game, 15-minute rapid game, trying to work out what's my compensation for giving up a pawn. I don't need to. At our level, remember a graph that I've shown many times on our channel. If you're outside of the elite level, the probability of you making a mistake is significant. And so eventually someone's going to crack. No one's going to last 30, 40 moves in a chess game without blundering. Something's going to happen. And so I don't need gambits. Okay? And so in this position, we have here b6, d3, bishop to d6. Okay, e5 looks a bit annoying, but okay, we'll deal with it. Knight on b to d2, rook e8, and now rook c1. Okay, third point on my list, simple moves, basic threats. Okay, games at this level, outside the elite level, can often be decided by simple moves which carry basic threats. And so rook c1 is just a solid move, it's not dubious. The c file might become open, and obviously we are contesting for it, we're activating our rook. But also here, c takes d5, threatens to win a pawn, the knight is hanging, and so black has to do something there. Okay, my opponent, good player, finds it, bishop b7, they go to protect the knight. We have in this position d4, preventing e5. And in this position, we have bishop to f8, c takes d5, queen takes d8, d5, excuse me. And yeah, there's a battering ram or potential battering ram here. I'm not concerned about it for the time being. We have bishop to c4, hits the queen. This queen move to d5 looked a bit dubious to me. We have queen to d6. And in this position, queen to c2, getting ready for the action along the c file. Maybe play bishop b5. The knight's going to be pinned. Looks like a good move. We have in this position knight to a4 or a5, excuse me. Bishop b5 is very natural. And there is a double attack on this c7 pawn, but also on the rook. My opponent really should be playing in this position rook to c8, but okay, they play c6, which is great. That is a defense, but the bishop is now blunted. They're going to have to spend the time moving it, and so I'm not worried about it for the time being. We have in this position knight to c4. Engine doesn't really like that, but it's okay. Basically saying there's no time to take my bishop. I'm going to take your queen. In this position, they took. You have to be careful about moves like this. Make sure your bishop has an escape square. Obviously, we have bishop takes c4. We have rook on a to c8, queen b1. Simple moves, guys. Just get out of this x-ray. We have bishop to e7, bishop e2, h6. Remember my graph, guys. Something's going to happen eventually. No one can last many moves without making mistakes. We have in this position knight to e5. And here, my next point on the list is that we want to address our opponent's best piece. I think at a low level, we think so much about what it is that we want to do in the game. We want to play swashbuckling chess. We want to sacrifice pieces, execute some amazing checkmate. You're going to win a lot of games by just getting rid of your opponent's best piece. If you watch Magnus Carlsen play Blitz or something online, you often see him talking about these type of bishops and trying to do something about them. And here, knight e5 carries a view of playing bishop to f3. We have c5, bishop f3. And okay, my opponent could come here, but then they're off the diagonal and we'll just move our rook. They decide to take. We have bishop takes f3, knight takes f3, queen to d5. Simple moves here. D takes c5. Okay, we're taken away from the center, but it carries a purpose. We activate the bishop. We'll see that that has a threat in the game. We have here rook takes c5. And I couldn't see any value in taking. Take is a mistake. Keep tension. Tension is your friend. That's how you induce a mistake from your opponent. We have here rook on f to e1. The queen's hanging. We have rook takes c1. And here you can't take because you're just going to go down a rook. And so we have here queen takes c1. And all of a sudden, I feel very comfortable. I feel like I might be winning. Engine says you have nothing. But the problem is that we're controlling these files now. And the bishop is looking good. Queen c3 looks like an idea. We have queen h5, queen c3. Okay, next point on my list. Obviously, I don't expect my opponent to blunder mates. And so this is really just a positional move. My opponent doesn't have the resource knight to h5 protecting the g7 square. And so we're just restricting this knight's movement. The more you can restrict your opponent's pieces, play positional chess, the more likely they are to blunder. The less moves that are available to them, the more likely they're just going to throw in a mistake. Here they cannot move their knight. Playing this position, bishop to f8, they're concerned about the g7 square. Okay, very careful player. We have queen to c7, very natural, get onto the 7th rank. Feel like we're totally winning. Engine doesn't say you really have anything. Rook to e7, queen g3, simple moves, basic threats. The knight is hanging. Obviously, the pawn is pinned. You notice that, guys. And I thought about knight to e4. Obviously, there's no mate. The bishop is there on f8. After knight to e4, surely queen to b8 is winning. And my opponent plays knight to e4, queen to b8. And in this position, the basic threat, my opponent is effectively cracked in this game. You can see the evaluation bar. The basic threat is rook to d8. And there really is only one way to kind of stay in this game. And my opponent doesn't find it. I'm going to pause the video, test your defensive skills in chess, guys, and see whether you can find the way to defend against rook to d8. Well done if you worked it out. I'll give you a few seconds to pause the video. It is a move that Benjamin Feingold says never play f6, but here f6 is a fantastic move. After rook to d8, double attack here on this bishop. Okay, queen f7, double protects it. And you'll say, oh, bishop a3, the rook can't move. It can't move, but you have knight to c5, and black lives to fight another day. Okay, so nice engine resource there with f6. My opponent cracks with this move, queen to c5, and now rook to d8 is surely winning. They play this annoying move, queen to c2, which I saw coming. And what's interesting, put the evaluation bar to one side. The evaluation bar sees a false mate here, which we'll go over in a second. From a human perspective, if you play this and then you run out of checks, this is going to be a checkmate. And so maybe my opponent is gambling in this position. My rationale for taking this bishop here on f8, I didn't know that there was a mate, is basically that I could always return my bishop. or return the piece by playing h3. And this isn't a threat because the king can shuffle up and the queen controls this diagonal. So I thought at the best case scenario, I'm going to checkmate my opponent. Worst case, I'm just returning the piece. Okay. My opponent in this position, we have king to h7, rook to h8, check, king to g6, only legal move. And in this position, there is just a forced mate in 4, okay? And it's just the importance of doing your tactics puzzles. Just keep on repeating, you know, basic puzzles over and over again, doing puzzle rush, puzzle storm on Lichess. It doesn't matter. You got to keep yourself sharp. It doesn't matter if you've done it once, you just got to do it 1,000 times. I missed the mate in 4 here, okay? And so you want to pause the video, work out what's the mate in 4. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to pause it. Okay, so one example here is rook takes h6. And if the king takes, we have queen h8 check, king g6, only legal move. We have in this position, queen to g7 check. And now it doesn't matter whether the king moves here or here, g4 is checkmate. Okay, so that was something that I missed. I was getting low on time. And instead, in the position, I played knight to e5, which isn't losing, it's still winning. We have here king to h5, g4, king to h4, knight f3, king to h3. And in this position, so low on time, 20 seconds to go. Thought maybe I have to settle for some perpetual as a draw here. I played here knight to g5, which is just completely winning. King to h4, knight to f3. Thinking about whether I should just settle on the perpetual here. We have here knight to g5, and I'll tell you what the problem here is. Like, naturally, you want to take this knight. The trouble with this move is this move here. Queen to b1. Obviously, if they take, and if after, say, king to h4, you take and they take, you're just going to be winning because of queen to g3 check, and then h4, f4, all of that's deadly. However, they have this resource here, queen to b1. And then I thought, well, okay, I can shuffle my king up, but then they're going to have queen takes e4, and then this game ends in a perpetual. It turns out white's still winning in this position because of bishop to c1, which is difficult to see. And so I took the knight, thinking that, okay, I'll get my opponent to force the perpetual here, right? I won't do it myself. My opponent can do it. And if they don't do it, they're just going to throw away the game. Now, thankfully, you know, remember at this level, defending is very difficult. They did play queen takes e4 and they lost. Because of queen g3 check, you have king g5, h4, king g6, only legal move, h5, king to g5. This is something I did see immediately. And f4 wins the game because the only legal move in this position is queen takes f4. And my opponent just left the game. So there you go. Hopefully some counterintuitive ideas to help you along your chess journey. Thank you very much for your time.